All right. We're here.
Bump, bump, bump. Lauren and Brad show.
Like, honestly, this is really nice of us to invite people to our personal phone call.
It's really what it is. I mean,
I
I don't know
mean,
that it's really all that different.
yeah, I feel like we just had the pre-call and there might have to be a post-call because we always have to say the things that we're not going to say to everybody else. But like otherwise, this is pretty much, a
Yeah,
real gift. A
I'm a
real
totally open book, except some pages are hidden.
Yeah, some pages are hidden, but well, publicly. Like at the end of the day, like I would talk to probably some of the people that are going to join here about what we were talking about,
Yeah,
but
right.
uh, but I'm not about to like make it public and save it on the platform.
Yeah, you don't need to broadcast everything.
No, exactly, exactly. But
That's right.
but okay. So I had an idea for how to structure this, just to kind of get it done, right? Because otherwise we could be all over the place.
Hold on
Um,
one second.
I know Miles is.
Hey, oh, buddy. Little homie. Sorry.
Did he just
Working
get
from
home from
home.
school?
He did, and I did not even know he was in the room. He just like rushed up to me real quick. So
So
yeah,
cute.
fun times as a weed smoking dad.
Exactly. Okay. We do have the chat open, so if people want to chat, please feel free. And I feel like I hope
That's
people.
something.
Oh, there's 8 people on. Okay, so
Hey,
here. What's up, Matt?
what's up, Matt?
What's up, Matt? Glad you're here. Hope others will join because what if we say something that we decide we don't want to make public? We might just delete this whole thing. So
Yeah,
only really the people who are here right now are guaranteed to see all of it.
that's right. That's right. We feel cute. We might delete. We don't know.
Exactly. We feel spicy. We might delete.
That's right.
Depends how
Maybe.
much weed
Yeah.
we smoke. Um, it's so funny because usually when I like on with somebody and they hit something that I've never seen before, because you hit like a vape, and I'm like, is that nicotine? Because but I know with you it's not nicotine. What is that?
This is called the Beam. It's like a laser vaporizer. You like stick concentrate in this little dish, and then it shoots a laser down on it, and doesn't like boil off all the terpenes and all the good flavors and stuff,
Cool.
and
So
like
it's more
just where
like
the laser touches is the only thing that vaporizes. So it's like every hit's like the first hit.
love that. So it's
Yeah.
concentrate. Nice.
Yeah, yeah. It's the only thing I've got right now that I'm like steadily using concentrates with, and it's allowing me to like get some like really good craft live rosins and like kind of explore that whole
I
development of
dig
the
that
market, which is
too.
fun.
It's very good for winter. For some reason, it feels like it's winter. Concentrates are for
Hmm,
winter for me.
I can see that.
Okay, so Woo's here. Kristen, we're ready for the tea. We're ready for the tea.
Big ups, y'all.
Okay. So, hello everyone. It's lovely to have you.
Hi.
Okay, so here's what I thought we could do. I will give I have like an overarching sort of perspective that
Okay.
that I'm going to share. And then maybe if you want to share an overarching perspective, then because I figured I could go first because I'm just telling you this now, and also, but I'm
Yeah.
sure you have something. And then we would kind of start with like your events that you went to on Tuesday, and then kind of go from there and like finish up with the MJs.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm down with
What
that.
I was, but we both have opinions about.
Thanks, Corey. This is it's space age for sure. It's a freaking laser beam. Sorry, I'm just responding to one of the comments there.
Yeah, yeah. No, I see the comment.
All right. So yeah, I like that plan. What's
Okay.
your overarching take?
All right. Let me just have a quick drink really quick. All right. So my overarching take is Vegas week at Vegas Cannabis Week is like a high school reunion that I have been to now 5 out of 7 years that I've been spending in this industry. and nothing is different. So like everyone's at the reunion, and some new people maybe are coming, but they're still, it's still a reunion because you've met them on LinkedIn. So that's why it's like the high school reunion.
Yeah, yeah.
Like nothing gets done except for the same amount of shit that gets done at a high school reunion. Oh my God, it's so good to see you. Thank you. Like, it's so good to see you. You look amazing. Let's take a picture together. Okay, great. Do you have a business card? Do you have a business card? Okay, thank you. It was so good meeting you.
Yeah.
Where is the value? Like, that is not, like, nothing gets discussed. I can discuss so much more on LinkedIn. I can, unfortunately, Brad doesn't have that anymore, but I can pitch, I can network so much better in other spaces.
Yeah.
You know, okay. And so that's my overarching take, that it is a homecoming or a like a homecoming party. It's not prom because no one graduated from anything. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a homecoming party or a high school reunion where it's all the same people. Everyone's trying to be cool. Everyone's clout chasing still just the same way as high school. And honestly, the industry is extremely behind in so many other areas, like so many areas, especially in marketing. And I, for one, am not going to homecoming anymore. I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, it's like I got off Facebook because all my actual high school friends are there. And I'm not going to this anymore. And I am staying in the cannabis industry, but also pivoting out of the cannabis industry for 2025. I'm really going to be pushing hard into influencer marketing across multiple different genres, niches.
Yeah. And you're by far not the first I've heard diversifying in that way, right? Like, I think that was a common theme I picked up a lot on in MJ Biz this year. Like, in the conversations I had that were formative, there was a whole lot of discussion of people either, not necessarily pivoting fully out, but like, diversifying their revenue stream by going out of the industry and searching for projects, which is like, fucking great. Get your money. Right. I feel like, and I think we've talked about this before, I feel like there's this weird stigma for working in the industry that you have to be married to it. And right. And certainly it's hard to get normie jobs if you've got cannabis on your resume, especially extensively. Right. If I tried to get a normie job right now, like, it's an obstacle I'd have to overcome. But I mean, I know I could overcome it. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I think that it's smart. It's addressing the economy right now, right? Like, because the what I picked up on also is just that nothing has changed really. It's hard to say nothing because there's just so many facets, right? Hip beverages have changed entirely.
Wait, what's your overarching take? Is this your overarching take?
Well, my overarching take is homecoming. Like, I refer to it as homecoming too. Like, I definitely, like, the way that I engaged with MJ Biz this year very much was that for me. But like, that was also sort of, I don't know, I approached it differently, right? Like, I wasn't going there with a specific goal or objective in mind for other people. I was literally just there because as you talked me into doing, I was able to walk into a room where a lot of people haven't seen me in a while, and they were like, "Oh shit, Brad, what's up, dude?" You know what I mean? So like, with the amazing, brilliant business cards you gave me to go do that with, that really worked out well for me. So like, I got to spend a whole lot of time reconnecting with and or forging connections with people I've known for some time now. A lot of people I got to meet for the first time, and I happened to be in some spaces where good quality conversation could occur. So I came in on Tuesday, and we're going to get to that in a second. My overarching take is this: that for my experience, while the industry is in this like awfully stagnant spot, and there are some things happening that are super exciting and new, the overarching theme of the thing is like, yeah, we're all just still sort of here doing the same thing we've been doing, just trying to make it to whatever's next, but we don't know what's next and when it's coming and what it's going to look like. And so maybe we're just going to keep just like riding this wave until we get there. and like closing our eyes and not paying attention to the pain for as long as it takes to get there. But like, I didn't pick up on any like, major optimism, major innovations, right? Like just little tiny little tweaks to things here and there, with the exception of hemp beverages, that I think make it a lot of the same as it's been. But my experience in it being so uniquely different, having been banned from LinkedIn and having this like whole LinkedIn presence preceding it, was that worked out really fucking well for me. And I was able to get FaceTime with a lot of really important people in my life that I just haven't been able to connect with in some time. And from that, I've got opportunities that are coming. So like, I know it was worth the time and the expense, as much as I hated being there and didn't sleep and fucking hate Vegas so goddamn much. Like, don't ever want to go back again. And probably, won't be there for MJ Biz next year unless there's a, compelling reason I need to be there for a company I'm working with. But I won't be able to like recreate this time and place where I've just recently been banned from LinkedIn and can capitalize on that. So it gave me a different perspective and vibe and approach to MJ Biz than I've ever taken. Like, again, I keep saying MJ Biz. I didn't fucking touch the conference at all. I never went to the conference center. I never hung out front to lobby squat. I didn't do any of that shit. Maybe that's where deals happen. I don't know. It wasn't where I wanted to be, so I just wasn't there. And instead, I think I picked some really good things to be involved in that that worked out. And while I was in those rooms, for the most part, I was having a pretty good time. So like,
yeah,
I guess I'm lukewarm on it. Like, I don't really know. I don't have like super hot tea to spill, but I also feel like everything you said is 100% valid, because I picked up on that too.
So good. I'm glad that you agree. And we have a special guest joining us. Very excited. Yeah, I won't. The person who just texted me. So, okay. So to me, the star event was Jews in Weed Bagel Bash, hosted by Shelby Poole, the founder of Betty Bloom Social Club, and also collab founded with Marino and somebody that Shelby will tell us. And it was really great for so many reasons. But the best was that it was in the morning. The space was a consumption lounge.
I mean, that's a big shift, actually. If we're going to talk about things that haven't changed, that actually is a big shift.
There.
Yeah.
Okay. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on hostess with the mostest, Shelby Poole from Betty Bloom Social Club, who's going to join us for this conversation. Boom.
Hey guys. Oh, so close. Oh my God. Hi, friends.
Hi, Shelby. We're side you're on.
This is so great. So I just want to, before we continue, I just want to address Joe Becker's question. I also thought your other comment was super kind of spot on. So I want to just talk to those things before we move on. But Shelby, I'm so glad you're here. Okay. So no discussions, panels, or ideas. So first of all, the panels are all hosted by very smart people in the cannabis industry. Don't get me wrong. But most people don't go to a lot of panels at this. And the only people who seem to go, and I know that this is the same thing every year, is people who are newer to the industry. So the conversation is definitely like a couple rungs down, I feel like, from like the type of conversation that we would be having, right? Because we're talking like, we've been in this for a while. We also have very strong expertises in our individual areas. So like those conversations, like for example, Kristen was one of the speakers, and she gave a great conversation and a great talk, but it's much more of a 101, right? So like it's not great minds speaking together. Right. So it was just, it's not like it is at other conferences like CES, for example, where it's like, or like a South by Southwest, where it's like a competition of great ideas to bring to the table. So that's what I would say about that. Do you guys have any thoughts about that?
I didn't even go to the show.
Neither did I.
Yeah. Same.
I felt bad. I felt bad. I wanted to go to the show. I'm also interested to see like how people were going to show up their brands, you know? Like marketing happens. Now, I'm in a new see, like, I don't know. I feel like I would want it. I like seeing people talk because I think that's where like beautiful little idea babies happen. And there's so much innovation that hasn't happened yet. Like
Yeah.
you guys are so like jaded because you're not in this shiny new market, but I'm in a shiny new market and like I don't know, the world is our oyster and I want to
Yeah.
hear people talking to each other. But I could also do that at home or while I'm driving and listen to a podcast.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm not gonna like we definitely have a more jaded experience, so it's good to have you to balance us out, which is like fine and fair. But I have a lot of this is my 5th time doing this, and it's like, yeah, the first time, the second time, even the third time was felt really like, oh my God, I'm here. This is a weed thing. Like I can't believe I'm at this weed thing. Like it's happening. But it's been happening for me for a very long time. And it's still just happening, but not enough is happening. And maybe you can share insight into, the fact that the East Coast has more capital than the rest of the country, because what it really comes down to for me is like, I'm going to a conference to be able to open the door to money. And it just feels like the second line out of everybody's mouth to me is we don't have any money.
Yeah. I can't speak to the panels or discussions at the show because I wasn't there for that either. But I have produced one of the panels or one of the discussions at MJ Biz in a prior year back in 2018. And that particular discussion was actually really quite in depth and informative. It was about cannabis chemistry and like really analyzing one of the great data sets in cannabis chemistry that we had access to at the time, making relationships make more sense about cannabis chemistry. And so like really digging into the difference between how certain genetics and certain methods of production produce different chemistry outcomes and what those terpenes and cannabinoid ratios look like, and like, what that looks like when you look at indica sativa hybrid versus indoor outdoor greenhouse versus just strain name. Like there's all this really, really, really cool data we were able to present, which at that time was super cutting edge and interesting and may even still be to this day. I don't know. But I know that it was standout at the time. Like the people who came into that room to witness that did include a blend of everyone from a first timer to a C-suite, right? Like, so I think like maybe Kristen's experiencing some level of consistency there, and that maybe they have been able to attract the right people into the room for that. Just haven't really spent a whole lot of time around that because I've only ever gone to MJ Biz to make deals or relationships happen. Like kind of just taking advantage of the fact that all these people are in one space for once. One space is also a misnomer. It's not one space. It's fucking 1,000 spaces spread out across this entire crazy fucking city that take forever to get to. But, one space, one city.
I rented a car.
Yeah, how'd that work out for you?
Yeah, it was the best. I felt like because I felt like I needed a place that if I needed to cry on the spot during my event, that I could go. That's why I rented the car.
I love that reason.
But I bet you didn't need it. You didn't need it, did you?
I didn't need it. No, I did use the car often during the event though. Like I kept walking around holding things and I was like, oh, let me go throw this in the car. So I did like having the car.
Yeah.
I changed in the car. I don't know. You don't know. This was like, I was like out of my element. Like I was not, normally I have my car. It's like my little MacGyver car. And I'm like, oh, let me go get some duct tape. So I liked having it. But
yeah.
So everything was really easy to get to for me. Although I did get lost for like an hour in the Cosmopolitan parking garage.
Oh, shit.
See, like yeah. Those spaces are so insane and labyrinthian. Like there's no way to just like pop in and out of them quickly.
Yeah. And like
on the strip.
Into people I knew, and I was like a little. I'm not going to say it was hysterical. But I was a little nervous that I was like never getting out. And I ran into people I knew, and they were like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm like, "Oh, nothing." I was like trying to be cool, but
just chilling.
Yeah, I was like just walking 3
Nothing wrong. What's up? Yeah, Kenya had a car too, and it seemed to be working out for her pretty well. She even gave me a ride to something.
Person that I wanted to meet, and I didn't get to meet Kenya. So
Oh,
someday.
Kenya was the like highlight of my MJ biz.
I only got to spend like a couple minutes, but I'll still, her vibe is everything.
Yeah, we got the privilege to go spend like an hour and a half together eating breakfast at this really cool little spot we found near the Plaza Hotel in downtown in Fremont. And it was just awesome to be able to just like hang out and talk and like get to know each other and like have so many symmetries between like, you know, her husband and her relationship and my wife's relationship. So like it was just real cool vibes. And we also got to do a breathwork meditation with Sabo Shen, whom I split a room with. And so Kenya was able to drive over and meet us in the morning. We did like a breathwork session, and then we bounced to go have that breakfast. So it was kind of like I got to spend like a lot of time with Kenya. It was dope.
That's really
I
awesome.
was super thrilled with the number of people that were creating wellness spaces.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of sound bowl healings. There were a lot of yoga sessions. I didn't do any of them, but I was very excited that they were there and that they were an option.
Yeah.
I thought so too. I thought there was a lot of like, I loved that your event also gave those like kind of wellness vibes in terms of like the being in the morning, being a breakfast, there being, you know, not like a party vibe, right? It was just like a breakfast vibe. And then like there was there was the breath work, and even the pickleball, I would say, like fits into that category of like good wellness vibey things to do.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more of that in the evening.
In the eve. That's true. It did shift pretty substantially to party mode. Not for me. Like I don't really have like a long tolerance for that. So I was like jumping about. I wound up at the Jimmy Devine event at Jerome Baker's, and that was more like mellow. It was just a sesh. And, you know, everybody loves a sesh. So I was happy to be there. Although, like, talk about being out of your element and not as cool as you thought you were. Like, walk into that room. I was like, oh, wow. New York is not as cool as we act. Got it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh, can I just say like shout out to Nigel and Sonia. Nigel was also one of the people I got to meet for the first time in person there, and that was super special as well. I mean, I met so many different people that I knew online for so long, but like getting actually to see them in person, give them a hug, that was super special. So yeah,
that is the best part. But what is the ROI on hugs? I guess that's my thing. It's like, and that's fine. The thing is that I've loved all my hugs for the past 5 years.
Yeah.
I can't keep investing in hugs. Like that's just where I am. You know what I mean? Like
I feel you.
I fucking love that part of it. And I feel like I'm never gonna lose that. Like you guys are my people no matter what, but like I just can't keep hoping.
Yeah. I didn't get any ROI from hugs. Hopium. You're smoking the hopium. Yeah. I didn't get ROI from hugs. I got filled with joy and happiness and community, which puts me into a positive space and allows me to navigate in a networking space more to find said deals. So like I did find some cool opportunities that came from the homies, right? So like a hug with someone like Nigel might mean an intro to somebody that I end up talking to this week, which happened not with Nigel, but with other people. I mean, nope, all love Nigel. I don't have that expectation. But, point being is like anybody that I met in that regard and that I was able to like, and again, because my objective was specifically that, it worked out all right. But if you're like, every time I've gone to MJ Biz where I've actually had like, I need to close deals as a goal hanging over my shoulders, I've actually never had a good outcome.
Sorry to interrupt you, but is Nigel the person that was walking around with the sign? Nigel, were you walking around with a sign that said like, I make retail people more money? Who was that? I feel like that's Nigel. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay.
Do you have his hair pulled in a little like bun / ponytail?
I don't know if it's him. Like he sat down at a dinner I was at for like about 3 seconds and then pieced out immediately. And I was like, oh, that guy seems cool. And then he was gone. So maybe it's him. Maybe it's not. Either way, I don't know the person that was at the dinner, but I wanted to. So
I did not see Nigel with the sign when I saw him. He was just holding a nice hemp beverage and had a big smile on his face.
I mean, I'm looking at like a 0.5 inch little
He
thumbnail
might
photo.
speak back. Yes, it was
Oh,
him.
it was him. Okay, cool.
There you go.
It was nice
All
not
right,
meeting
so wait,
you. very
Shelby,
well.
Kristen had a really long question for you up here. Did you
I
see
saw
it?
that. I saw that.
Okay,
So Kristen,
I don't want to
is
put it on the
talking-
screen because it will cover all of our faces. Do you want to answer?
Yeah, so Kristen was talking about she really ended it with like where is the fun, which is definitely like my platform all the time. I'm like, nobody covers lifestyle when they're doing any kind of journalistic reporting about cannabis. Everything is about regulatory. Everything is about like building the business, the industry, inward facing, like talking to each other and like
No
where
consumer
is the
conversation.
where is the part where we just like turn outward and remember that like cannabis is not an industry, it's actually every industry because it's a lifestyle. Sure there's an alcohol industry, but it touches every other one, and we're not like admitting that that's cannabis yet. And I think that these parties and like being in consumption lounge was a good reminder of it, that like people want to get stoned and then also exist as they were doing the things that they were always doing. So I am actively looking to embrace that more. I mean, if anybody on this call wants to hire me to plan a freaking event for them, like we'll do it. We can go bowling, we can go roller skating. Like, I think activities are clutch. I think that you can still drink and you can still, network, but you can also do it while you're in an escape room. I don't know why we can't.
That's right.
So, I think like challenging your brain in a different way is really healthy for all of us. And then there's also the fact that, and this is kind of like my big takeaway from really the past 4 years, honestly, we're acting like we're all normal, like we're all okay, like we don't have worldwide PTSD from a pandemic, that we all came inside and shifted everything about the way we were living. So, just paying attention to people that are a little anxious to go out in a social situation, who might need to rent a car in case they need to cry in it, who might, not have any clothes that they wear anymore because they wear their pajamas all day because they're on Zoom calls. So, all those things, like, I think gathering is important, but gathering in a way that's mindful of like the fact that we're all fucked up is probably the most important part of it. But the fun, I don't understand. I have fun when I smoke weed. It doesn't matter what I'm doing.
Right. We like all the things. And like, we're literally doing this in Vegas. So like, why aren't we taking advantage of the fun that could be happening there? Like, you can literally create anything that your brain comes up with, no matter how sordid or chill. And there are opportunities to do it there. Like, I do give a huge shout out to Puff Creative in this regard, because like the pickleball event was so dope and it had such great vibes and it was in such a cool location. And we were all consuming, and it was just like, the hemp beverages were everywhere and a lot of people were playing, and it was just like something fun to do in the middle of the day that had nothing to do with everything else. And it was just like the right chill environment. Good conversations happened there. And then they did the Breathe and Heal brunch, which I was able to do right before I had to take my flight out. So it was like a way for me to almost like rinse Vegas out of my brain a little bit, and they packed the room. They had more people than they had mats to lay down in this space and do a sound bath and some breath work. Like, that was in high attendance because of how much we need this shit. Right. And it was also at a consumption lounge, right? Like, these are the things that baffle me about the way that Vegas is operated in, the way cannabis companies choose to throw events there. Like, you can activate such meaningful things in all of these spaces that exist around there, and so few people are taking advantage of that. They're just renting a room or whatever.
Just to like, this is not exclusive. This conversation is not exclusive to there being a cannabis event in town. So I had, some thorough conversations with John, who runs Smoke and Mirrors, which is the cannabis lounge that we operated in, which is within Thrive Marketplace. They don't fill the room ever. It blew my mind. I mean, if I had a space legally that I could be in the New York market or in my market, in my home market, and I could be, pushing off to different brands. Like, I was like, why don't you have a brand activation 7 days a week? Like, why is GTI not sponsoring Pizza Tuesdays every single Tuesday? Like, why don't you have bingo night? Like, why aren't we thinking about it in terms of the way you would program a bar or a restaurant? Like,
Right.
again, in a post-COVID world where you have to kind of be a little crafty to fill the space. They didn't have any other events that week. Like it does. It's kind of mind-boggling to me. Like they were like, yeah, you can load in whenever. And I was like, what do you mean?
Are you
like,
sure?
And they were like, yeah, don't worry about it. And I don't understand because the whole time we were walking the strip, we were like, we really wish we could just go sesh somewhere that was like a vibe.
Yeah.
So, people are not utilizing spaces in general for cannabis-friendly events and activations or gatherings. And, I think that that's like really just a massive opportunity. You don't need to create a consumption lounge. You just need to be friendly to people consuming.
Right.
That's
it.
Have an ashtray.
Yeah. Yeah. There were a number of places I went that were just bars, but had patios and were tolerant. And like, that was enough. I mean, when we were at the pickleball thing, we were at the rooftop of the Plaza Hotel, which is a casino. And over in the corner, we were unperturbed, able to rip bong rips and, do dabs and whatever. The golf tournament I went to, like the country club didn't give a single fuck that people were serving dabs out on the patio outside, like, next to the golf course. And I saw a question that Mark threw down some time ago about solventless dabs.
It's up on the screen.
Couple times I saw solventless dabs being served at some of these events. So like, just being able to know that we could consume cannabis at a cannabis event at the biggest cannabis conference in the world is like, that should be like the bare, like,
that's the standard.
Yeah, it should be the standard, right? Like the lowest bar to hurdle. Yeah.
When we were like sitting around the chandelier bar, which was like, look, this was my first time, so like haze me as you wish, but like I was overwhelmed by the fact that there were so many industry people that were gathering in one place, but I was really underwhelmed by the amount of people that were like actually getting stones. Like I was like, where are my sesh buddies? I'm so confused. Like there were a couple people that I like, people have rooms and suites, but like, why are we not gathering at a place? Like when I'm in New York, if I'm in the dispensary right now, I'm at Happy Days on Long Island, and I'm with my coworker. If we're having a gathering, we're seshing the whole time.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm like, I get it. Like alcohol is the thing. It's the lubricant of choice. But like in this industry, I thought.
It's not. And that's so everything you're saying and that is like shocking to you is the reason why I guess I'm jaded is because I found that out a few years ago already and nothing has changed. Your event was the only event. I mean, obviously also a couple other events where there was actually not like a stigma around using cannabis. So like, for example, at the Grasslands party, and I guess we'll just jumping all over the place, which is totally good. At the Grasslands party, I was specifically told to put my joint out.
Yeah, you had to leave to smoke at the Grasslands.
You had to leave to smoke, but like, I know that there's networking outside too, but like, I don't want to leave. If I'm leaving, I'm leaving. Like, I don't want to have to leave to smoke. That feels like it's stigmatized to me.
Right. Our job is to be stigmatized right now. And I get it. You're trying to be like socially respectable to the other people, but like this is a cannabis event.
No, and it's more just like they could get a huge fine at the bar if they are shown to be allowed, sharing, allowing smoking. So like I understand it from like a hospitality perspective. I just wish that our people were choosing better places for their events. I mean, and I understand somebody like Ricardo, for example, they used to have their party at like a house and then it got too big. I mean, you can't have all those people at a house in a neighborhood, like the neighbors on a Wednesday fucking night, like the neighbors are not psyched about that. So,
right. Yeah.
And like, it gets to a point, and also all the Airbnbs have like no party clauses and all types of stuff. So I totally understand why they had to shift it to the place where it is now or was. Totally. But
John is saying about the liquor license, which is completely valid. And I can certainly speak to that because I have a bar on Long Island that I've had. It'll be 20 years this year. And I can tell you right now that, again, post-pandemic, I don't give a fuck if my liquor license gets taken away. Like, I believe so heavily in the possibility of what consumption looks like in the future and what destigmatization looks like that I can have a non-combustible cannabis license and it'll look just like a brewery or a bar, perhaps, where you're just drinking your weed or eating your weed and smoking outside, like what is normal and legal. Different regulations in different states. So I'm not going to speak to like what the risks were in Vegas, but like you can, I promise, find operators that are willing to take that legal risk to throw a fire party.
Yeah, I mean, I attended a few different parties, and I noticed that the way that they approached it were totally different, like depending on the venue, right? So like, I was on mushrooms when I went to the Grasslands party, so I didn't feel like, I was already kind of set. They didn't try to light a joint. I was able to hit my dab rig just fine, but it's a vape, right? But what I did notice was that there was a security guard standing over a railing like this, eyeballing the entire party, right? So like that venue had its own vibe. I didn't dig it. Directly across the street, Puff Creative's event was in a venue where like there was the bar and then the DJ booth, and right in front of the DJ booth was a dab bar. So you could like get alcohol, or you could get dabs, or you could go smoke a joint on the patio, and like they seemed super cool with it for whatever reason, right? Now, like two venues literally directly across the street from one another, you could see each other's patio from the patio. It was weird, but they had very different policies for how they tolerated cannabis. And then I went to like the Tech Jam party, and that one, like, they didn't have security like mean mugging everybody, but if we wanted to smoke, we had to go outside onto the sidewalk, and like we had to move farther enough away from the entrance that they felt comfortable with it, right? So like they kept scooching us, and it was what it was. Like I've kind of seen it all now at this point, and I think the thing that I was the most surprised by was the country club being cool with it. Like most people were walking around, like I didn't see anybody drinking. Of course, it was earlier in the day, but still, I saw most people drinking hemp beverages, smoking joints, or hitting the dab bar. And when you give cannabis operators that option, I find alcohol is far less likely to be needed, wanted, desired. I'm not saying that everybody smokes weed in our industry or that nobody wants to drink, but just that like when the emphasis is shifted, the behavior changes and the vibe changes, and like what can be done in that space professionally or experientially, like from a personal level, all changes. And like that was the stuff I was really like interested in experiencing while I was there, and I'm happy I got to taste it a few times with some of the things that I was at. But yeah, I don't dig the vibes where you just go into a room and everyone's drinking and you can't smoke anywhere.
So I want to speak to this whole dab bars thing, because I know this is a little bit of like a side quest, but I just want you guys to know that you will never, ever see me do a dab off someone else's rig, no matter what. I don't give a fuck if you have alcohol wipes, okay? No matter what, the person's mouth is on here. They're breathing. Maybe they breathed out. Maybe a little tiny bit of drool got down in there. I'm sorry. That's disgusting. Okay. Unless this is my opinion, obviously. Okay. So that's whatever. But like, I'm sorry. This is disgusting to me. And every time I see it, I'm like, oh.
Dab bars are so wildly popular in New York. Like, oh my God. I mean, also, every one of my events has a dab bar. Although I will say, there are levels. There are levels. Show me a nice clean rig. Bring me some glass. Do something that makes me feel like you've cleaned it ever. But like, I do have a lot of people that will set up like a Puffco, just like sitting on the table with like no tablecloth, and they're like, "This is our dab bar," and I'm like, I don't know. So
I just want to speak to this. Thank you. Stand on business, Lauren. I want to speak to this, and this is why, okay? No, I don't share joints ever. Disgusting, gross, smoke your own joint. No. Okay? Same thing. Okay. We're all different, okay? But like, as a rule for hospitality, no. So here's how Cirrus is doing it, and I do believe that this is the gold standard, okay? One person gets a perfectly clean piece of glass, clean, new fresh water. And if somebody else at the table also wants to hit that, that's fine. But otherwise, and then they can even have it cleaned. I mean, when we go to the parties, I don't know if it's how it will be when you actually like go there for like a sit down experience, but like you can choose any piece to try another hit out of, and they'll bring you clean stuff. And so, and they're not just taking an alcohol wipe to it, they're taking it into the kitchen, or, and they are actually putting alcohol into the bottom, and they are cleaning it, and a fresh pipe, a fresh downstem, and a fresh bowl.
Yeah.
Then, and a dab rig, same exact thing. Okay.
Someone needs to invent, like, I don't know, an environmentally friendly, like, mouth condom thing.
Well, I mean, we have some of those, but also, so I will say that the
Yes.
Mouthpiece has some really cool stuff. Another option, the Student Glass is a really, really good option for non-disgusting sharing of smoking. So you can, it comes out like a hookah. So you can just put it up to your mouth, and a stream is coming out, and you can just inhale the stream without putting the glass really very close at all to you. And that piece of glass can then be cleaned off for another person, and nothing is going down into it. So
you're very concerned with the drink.
I'm grossed out by that, Toby. That's just,
it's valid. It's totally.
It's valid. I remember I went to the first party I ever attended at Lauren's, and she had the Student Glass set up, and I was the first person to take a rip off of it, and I took the hose and put it in my mouth. She goes, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Sorry, I don't know. I've never used one of these."
Etiquette is such a big thing. Like, why has nobody
Yeah.
read an etiquette book yet? Well,
someone has.
Have they? Like,
hold on a second.
You have it?
It's not up to date. It's not up to date.
Right. Like, okay, I'm going to tell you my biggest faux pas.
This is by Sophie St. Thomas, whom is the granddaughter of the woman who wrote the book on etiquette in the United States, like back in the late 1800s, early 1900s or something like that. And she wrote a cannabis etiquette book. I picked this up in like 2018, I think.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, wait, are donut holes in there though? Were they a thing yet? Because
no, like this is out of date. They probably need an updated edition.
I ashed a donut hole, and it was like the room fell silent, and it was like, this bitch doesn't know what she's doing, because apparently you're like not supposed to.
A hash
like,
hole?
Yeah.
Oh.
So like, you're not supposed to ash it. Didn't know.
I didn't know that.
Book on that. Where's the chapter on that?
Yeah, it's Reddit or 4chan.
There's room for more books, to be clear.
Concentrate down too much. Like, if the ash keeps it warm. I don't fucking know. I don't know if I like it, but now I'm scared, and I won't even. I'm like, I'm actually good right now, and I don't take it because I'm like, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna be the one doing it wrong.
I do share joints, but I promised my wife not to, so that I would never come home and get our kids sick. So when I do share joints now, I do that old like hand box method where you stick the joint through the pinky and you hit it through your hands, but not actually the joint itself.
A couple people were doing that. I was like, I'm not gonna.
It's the move. I've not gotten sick since I've started doing that, for what it's worth. And while I was doing it, it reminded a couple people in the session I was having with them that they were like, "Oh yeah, fuck, I never remembered to do that." But like, that's a good idea. I don't want to get sick, so I kind of like cut it in the middle somewhere. Like, I'm definitely here for the sesh. I love to share blunts with people. I just, tuck it in my pinky and make a little hand bog.
My rule is this: everybody has their own way of keeping themselves feeling safe, right? My rule is, some people need to rent a car to cry in. My rule is I only will share something with someone who I'm also like sleeping in a hotel room with, right? Like, so like Woo and I shared my Puffco. We would share joints, no problem. So you might see me passing joints and think, oh, she shares joints. But I have a very strict rule about it.
Only in my bubble.
Only in the bubble, because I feel like, well, if I'm going to get sick, I'm going to get sick anyway. Whatever. Who cares?
I was the same with Sabo. Like, he and I were sharing vapes and joints here and there. Man, I wasn't doing the little hand box method. So,
yeah.
Don't tell Steph.
I guess it just didn't cross my mind while I was there. I just, passed it.
Yeah.
I didn't ash anything because I didn't want to get in trouble again. It was
Shelby hitting a joint. The ash is like this one.
It's like
it's all curly.
I call that the
it like falls. I'm like, I'm so
Marge
sorry.
Simpson.
Yes.
Yeah. I will also say I did hit a dab rig at dab bars that were wiped with alcohol, but like I knew that wasn't enough.
I've been with
It's
you
like
enough times. I've grossed you out. Like, if you're with me, I will probably say you can do that, but I'm not. And then you're
yeah,
gonna
right.
probably say something like, "Why wouldn't you?" And I'm gonna be like, "Think about it. You think nobody drooled down in there? And then you're gonna inhale their drool."
Most joints can be hit with a straw.
Wait,
I have
like
no
you stick the like one of those like old like Art Deco cigarette holder situations?
No,
Like you just make
take a straw and put it on the end, and then use that.
right. You kind of make it like one of those like long cigarette
Yeah,
things, holders, whatever you call those. That's a
good idea.
That's a cool idea. I've literally never thought of that or seen that in my life, but like, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Or like someone should invent like a long cylindrical that gets wrapped in paper that sometimes you can use to drink stuff. Someone should invent
Yeah, imagine that.
Someone should. Oh my God, seriously, Stavo with the best comment. They also made out and didn't get sick. Don't mention that to Steph.
Got lucky in multiple ways.
Sounds crazy, but put it at the end and just inhale. Okay, well, I'm gonna do
try
that in the future.
I'm gonna stop at Starbucks. I'm gonna say yes, I would like a straw. I normally decline my straw, but I will not today.
Who is the person that made that comment?
Yeah, who is that? Because it's not popping up.
I see LinkedIn user, but I want to thank that person personally.
Funny,
yeah, right. If you're gonna change someone's life, you should get the cred.
So
I agree.
Okay. I really don't want to. An unwrappable filter tip. I love that, where you just take a little part off and then you have a clean piece right next to you. So there's like a little, like the tip, you just keep taking, like almost like a toilet paper. You just keep taking the tip off like this way. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that makes it. I don't know that I follow that one.
Okay. Ashley Carlson, LinkedIn user. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Ashley Carlson, for your genius innovation. Like I wish you had that product at MJ Biz as like shit to stuff in goodie bags for people. Like that should be like a merch item for people. Like
imagine getting rich off just like repackaging straws.
Right.
You go to McDonald's and you're like, oh, can I just like get a thing of straws, and then you like make $1 million off of it. You never have to procure the product.
He doesn't even know what we're saying. We're saying we want you to actually create a branded product that is a straw.
That's right.
And you just the only thing that's special about it is you teach people how to use it inside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the thing that's special is that on the outside it just doesn't say straw.
It's made of compostable material, and it has break points so that you can like break it into shorter segments if you need, right? 6 swag item. I would buy that swag item on behalf of the brands that I represent in marketing for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, Woo just totally kept it so real.
Woo's going fatalist. She's like, fuck it.
That's a perfect transition, because I do want to try to keep us on
topic.
Well, I don't
want theme.
I want to talk about things, and I also know people have like lives and things, so you might.
Yeah, of course.
Go soon, maybe. So okay. Back in COVID times, I could go for like 3 hours because I didn't have anything. There was like nothing to do. Remember? Okay, so here we can't now. So I really want to talk about the MJs, and honestly, in general, just the money spending of brands, because I feel like that's like kind of like a big macro topic. Oh, but before that, I just wanted to also speak about I have heard that MJ Biz is monetizing the sessions. So basically, if you want to, you can subscribe to buy basically a pass to get a whole track for $49. Okay. So like, let's say you're just an average Joe who didn't go to the show or whatever, you can now purchase for $49 an entire track and watch all of that content.
Oh.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's smart for them to do.
Yeah, but what if you're one of those content creators? What if you stood up there and you didn't get paid to be up there?
Oh,
You,
snap.
you actually paid money for your flight and your
Yeah.
hotel room, probably maybe they pay for the hotel room, but not only for a couple nights if they do. And you are basically marketing for them the entire time ahead of time.
Yeah.
And now they're making your content that you spent time putting together available to anyone to just buy. And there's no royalties, there's no mention of this in contract.
Right.
What?
Yeah, that's whack.
Yeah, I mean, if it's just like they sprung it on people without that being part of the contract, that's pretty fucked up. I think some people would appreciate I know you will not agree with this because I respect the shit out of you for it, but you want to make sure content creators are being compensated. So, but there's also the platform of an engaged audience of people that maybe it's leading to a new business opportunity for you, hopefully. But yeah, no, that's kind of shit.
I think I would agree with you if I were if first of all this was made public to them that they were going to do that beforehand, number one, and that would be part of the trade compensation package, because I did happen to see some MJ Biz contracts, and they are using a lot of their like website exposure and things like that as collateral for getting other people to do things for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just feel like, okay, and in general, and the MJs too, right? Basically, they are like, it's a marketing competition, right? And it's a marketing competition that is put on by some of the best marketers in the industry, right? Because basically it's best marketing agency of the year, best PR agency of the year, best influencer of the year. So now you've got six PR agencies talking about the MJs. Now you've got 6 marketing agencies, which there were some crossover. Now you've got, all the hemp brands, all the everything that is out there that is nominated is now shilling for the MJs for 8 weeks because they need to drive votes. Okay, so they're vote for us, and you need to vote every single day in order to help me vote, right? Okay, help me win. Great. So now there's all these people who are expert marketers putting money and time and effort into content creation for free for these platforms. Okay, for these platforms. Okay. And then, so that's one thing, that is fine. But then there's an 8-judge panel that makes the final decision.
There is?
Yes.
It almost, so Kimber won Hemp Brand of the Year. She was here today. We had a big talk about it. She has her trophy she doesn't actually have it. Tanya, the Canna Diva, has it, and I feel bad because we were on the same, whatever, it doesn't matter. Kimber doesn't have her trophy yet, but she's excited for it. And we all know it.
As she absolutely should be.
Yes, as she should be. I do agree with you. I was getting her emails every day and her texts and her Instagram posts, and it is a lot of energy being put onto something that ultimately felt, I love Kimber and I voted for her, but to get a text every day that I have to vote every day, and it's not like the simplest, you can't just like click a button and you're like, oh, I'm done. They have to get my data, right? And they have to get my data every day.
Every day.
It doesn't feel like the best use of time or energy.
Yeah.
No, at all. Especially and we don't know at all if our votes meant anything. Ever heard of the Electoral College?
Yeah. That's kind of.
Basically, they are the Electoral College of this thing. So I personally, and this is just my take on it, because obviously I was with Woo and Woo did not win. And we have, of course, been like, why didn't we win? Like unpacking it. Woo knows how many votes she had, and it's a lot. I mean, she had so many of us posting, not only voting for her every day, but posting to vote for her every day with a link to the vote. And it was really, to Shelby's point, it was a pain in the ass. You had to like go and vote. You had to go sign in, and then it had to send you an email, and then you had to go click on the email and vote every single day for every category. I think maybe if once you were in, but I just want to say it was not good and not fun, and definitely asks a lot of that community, right? Okay. So I know like how many I vote, how many, okay. Then see who won, and we look at her content, and not one time in any of the content that at least we can see did she ask for votes. So we're like, how did you win? This is absolutely nothing against Sarah Palin. I just want to be clear. There is no like animosity about any of this. It's literally about the process, because everybody in that category deserved to win, because they didn't even really have there was like a podcaster and an influencer and a Twitcher, and like that's not the same. That's not all the same thing. You should have best podcast or whatever.
Right.
So, but the point is that it's a marketing competition for me to rally up and get all the votes, but then maybe it doesn't really matter who has the most votes, and maybe it's more of a pay for play or a grin fucking situation, excuse me, but like I will say there's a connection, and this is my hypothesis, not Woo's. This is not being a sore loser. This is whatever, okay? This is me saying that I can't believe that, you know, somebody who was so close to MJ Biz that she was the podcast of MJ Biz, right? She was making content on site. She was shilling for them. She shills for the whole industry all the time. And it's a B2B. At the end of the day, it's a B2B conference. But Woo's content is not B2B. It's actually B2C content. The one person in that whole thing that was really for consumers, the people who are ultimately using the product. So Woo's actually driving purchase, right? And getting all those votes. And so to my point is, and Woo, partially because of my counseling her, declined working with MJ Biz to make content for them this past week. And the reason is that she just felt like it was a big ask, and she didn't want to have to make 3 reels while she was in Vegas. That was way too much for her during that time. She felt overwhelmed. And so she turned down the offer for the free ticket to MJ Biz because of that. And so then she doesn't win. And I'm not saying she won. I'm not saying that. I'm saying make the votes public.
Right.
So that we can know who won. Because I mean, even on Dancing with the Stars, which is like kind of a similar, just think about Dancing with the Stars as like a kind of a similar concept, right? But it's transparent.
Right.
Judges like give a score, and then the people vote. And yes, it's a popularity contest, you know, and a marketing contest, but at least the judges are actually being transparent with their opinions. So anyway,
can I give a take here? Right. So
here, because a lot of conversations.
No doubt. Full disclosure on this, and this is like more really just like to give you a sense of the source of this input, is that I actually worked with Ricardo at the Cannabis to throw the Cannabis Awards at Vegas during MJ Biz in 2016, which if the Cannabis had continued, the Cannabis Awards probably would have become the official awards partner of MJ Biz, right? So like we were in that spot that the MJs are currently in back in 2016 and would have been there for 2017 and onward if things had gone a little differently with the Cannabis. But the point I'm making here is that the way that we structured those awards, and because we also were housed in Big J journalism, the Denver Post, right? So like there was a lot of journalistic integrity that needed to be preserved behind how we decided editorially to award the different people in the different categories. The thing that made it effective was that the nomination process was popularity contest, as almost all of them are. But once the nominations were created, we got actual a panel of judges that were plucked from different points of the industry that all had credibility and, you know, were established people in different facets and in different locations, and they weren't just people we knew, but or people that were involved with the cannabis in any way. In fact, I don't think any advertisers sat as judges. I think we made that on purpose. And then we published the criteria with which they were judging for, and like how they were going to judge. Like we were transparent the entire way. And like, I think, you know, the fact that most of us don't realize that there's a panel of judges at the MJs that override potentially what the public is deciding is a real big fuck up on their part, right? Like at least, or it's an intentional, you know, hidden factor they keep in their back pocket so that they can have their thumb on the scale. This is the only reason you would keep that secret, right? There's literally no reason to like one can say structurally the Cannabis Awards also had an 8-panel judge who decided the winners, and they're the ones putting their thumb on the scale. But we were very transparent about that panel of judges, who they were. We celebrated those judges, right? We were like, we are not the ones making this decision by any influence whatsoever of advertising dollars. This decision is being put into the hands of other professionals that we have vetted and trust. And those professionals are grading on this criteria that you can all understand and evaluate so that you know that this is legit, right? And if you have any questions, like if we needed to, we could have published the final scores that the judges provided us, right? Like if anybody asked for it, nobody needed to ask for it because the integrity was in place. But the fact that none of us know that there's a panel of judges with their thumb on the scale, there's no published criteria, we don't know who they are, right? Like that just erodes entirely the credibility of the MJs, in my opinion.
It also, I mean, it's kind of insulting to the people they choose to be the judges. Like,
yeah,
being a judge is that it's an honor to be a judge. So
correct.
When you want to, I was involved in I was a judge for the Craft Beer Marketing Awards when I was back in beer. And there were so many judges. And at first I was like, why is this happening? But it's like, well, we were vetted by, you know, the organization that's running the program. We were invited to be a part of it. We're doing it voluntarily. There is set criteria. And that way it's not like, well, I have the most friends that are on Facebook that will sit there for an hour a day to try to log in. Like, because that's what it becomes. And now you're saying that's not even what it is. It's like, we can eliminate, like, that's a lot of extended energy coming from a lot of different directions, which is like so telling of the times we're in, right? Just people doing things because we do them. And
because someone asked us that we follow and that we care about and that we want to succeed. And we're like, this is a free way that we can support them, but it means nothing. And like, that's the tea, people. That's the tea that I really wanted to share. That
well, this is my problem with this whole thing. Cause like, I like, so I just want to be clear about a couple things. First, I love Sarah. I think what Sarah does is incredible. And I'm so glad that she was honored with an award, right? Like Sarah's been hustling her podcast for a long time and has been growing it and has great conversations on it. Nothing but love for Sarah, as well as Puff Creative, as well as Grasslands, as well as anybody else who won that like I know and trust and love. And I like want them to feel the honor of that award. But like when the award itself, when they choose not to be transparent, when they choose not to move with integrity, they make it like it. I don't want to say it's embarrassing for the award winners, but they make them look like fools to us to a certain degree, because it's sort of like they have this thing that they really cherish and they think is great and it's validating, but then it's like, but is it? And like, so like, are they fakes, right? Like, have they promoted a thing that doesn't matter? And like, but now they have the thing and obviously they still need to have it and promote it. So like, it just puts them in a weird place, right? Like when you honor someone with an award, but it has literally no integrity behind it, but you didn't know that going in, right? It's not like, you know, the who's who of American fucking high school students where you know what you're getting into when you're getting into it. But you know,
people do know. I just want to say some people do know.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I suppose it's my ignorance on it then, because I didn't realize that at all.
So I just feel like So bottom line, yes, they make the final decision. It's bullshit. And it's based on who spends the most money or has the potential to spend the most money. Right? Like, yeah. And it's going to be what's best for the people who are going to be getting that money, which is at this end of the day, Fairchild or MJ Biz, right? I mean, so it's definitely like in their best interest, right? Okay, so
it was a really beautiful award show. Not to be like,
okay, sure, yes, it's great.
I mean, I wasn't there. I looked at.
I was, and it was
and
beautiful.
It's exciting. It's to see something that's on that scale, like it's such a beautiful professional production, and like, to what we were saying before about like we haven't really made our way in terms of like building out the fun parts of things. Like that's one of those lifestyle events that doesn't, in our stoner space where we're all just potheads, having something that's such an elevated presentation of the industry is important to the industry. And regardless of whether you win or not, being in the room and being a nominee is increasing your credibility.
That's cool.
To Gen Pop, right? Like, sure, you can get into it and you can find you can pick anything apart. And I'm not saying that these aren't like, first of all, I think it's ridiculous that podcasters and content creators are in the same category because they're not the same. They're just not the same category. So off the bat, I was a little confused at how that was even like a head to head, but there are like overarching positives that are coming out of like presenting the industry in such a way because people are paying attention to it. And I think that we're at the point right now where like we have to, I say this all the time, but like we're so internal facing all the time, and it's great to celebrate the industry. But when you're celebrating the industry and presenting it in such a way that it gets the eyes of mainstream audiences, that's where magic starts to happen. And that's where we start to like actually have the momentum that like, I know New York market, I'm not jaded, so sorry, but there's more to this, right? We have more to come. It's not over yet.
And here's the problem that I have. Sorry, I'm not going to be positive about it because as it was beautiful and great, but if you wanted to smoke, this isn't the problem. But if you wanted to smoke a joint or anything related to that, you had to go outside the theater and outside the casino, very, very far away. You would never want to do that because then you have to show your ID again, right? Because you're going into a casino, the whole thing. Okay. So the reason why this is a problem for me is that these same companies and partners that are making the big stink and providing the money to these organizations like MJ Biz and the MJs to get to get themselves that fame, and then turning around and saying that they don't have money to reach the consumer, to me is just the death of the industry, because it means you're just circle jerking and everybody just wants the title of best of blah, blah, blah to put on their website so that when newbies come in, they can be like, oh, who should I go to? Oh, Grasslands. Oh, Puff. But here's the thing. I don't know what their money situation looks like, but I've spoken to some of their clients and I know they don't have a lot of money. So it's like, nobody is succeeding and people are spending money like they are. And Ricardo is about to do a look behind the curtain. He shared this yesterday about how they made Grasslands the most visible brand at this during Vegas. And like my question, and I talked to, I told Brad I was going to talk about this, was like, this is my question, nobody else's. Okay, well, tell us how much you paid. Because, and what percentage of your revenue for next year is that? Because that would be really helpful to understand what it takes to reach just the people who are actually trying to pay attention to you. Now let's talk about what it takes to actually reach the consumer who is not trying to pay attention to you. And so I'm just very frustrated with the whole concept of all of this. And I see where your head is at, Shelby, where you're like, but we're doing something. And I'm like, it's not enough. And
no, and I'm an alternative route kind of person. I hear that someone made a large investment in an event and I'm like, why? The only thing that's substantial to an event is being around each other, and that's free. Good company, it doesn't cost any money. and we all have weed in our pockets, and we all have brands that will contribute some weed, and it's a weed event. So like, other than water, which is also a natural resource, I can't imagine, you know, I get the investment into things, but I have long questioned the investment in things. So I'm totally on the same page as you, that like, what is the ROI of these things? And like, why is it this way? And I do think that like, I think the alcohol industry has contributed to that, right? Because that's not cheap. So I think that there are just like norms that we have of gathering, celebrating. The standard version of what networking always was required an investment. And I just don't think that's life anymore. I think that like, we can just take things in a more natural and authentic way.
Yes.
And we reach our people. Like, I went to the Grasslands party because I got an email free. He paid for his domain. Great. But like, I went to the Grasslands party because I got a really nice email from someone. It was a genuine email. It felt like, I don't know. And I went because I was excited to see who else was in the room.
That's great. And you should nothing about that, because honestly, getting an invite to that thing does mean that you've gotten that you've gotten the attention of people. And so I was
geeking out. Are you kidding? I called nobody because I was like, I don't know who knows about this. Actually, you're the one that was like, the only party you need to really worry about being at is the Grasslands party. And I applied for it under my Betty Bloom email, and I got emailed under my Happy Days email, and I was like, oh my God, they see me. And like, I don't know. They probably just want me as a client, but either way, sure. I'm paying attention.
I just want to, I know Brad, I'm sure Brad wants to speak because I've been speaking, but from Mark, this is from Mark Shepard. He is the founder of NECAN. Okay. NECAN is a conference as well, and they focus on local markets. So really just going into the local market and helping people network and meet in the local market. NECAN is also a High Curious client, so thank you. And has, I think really high standards when it comes to, first of all, how they respect content creators, and as well, how they're just, seemingly, at least for now, really transparent about what they do. And I feel like
I've heard good things.
Yeah. So go ahead, Brad. I'll stop talking.
No doubt. Look, first up, I don't think you're ever going to get a full understanding of their finances in this, because the component of what it costs is also what sponsorships were raised to offset those costs, right? So like going back to that award ceremony I was telling you about in 2016, we threw a party in the Paris nightclub. Keep in mind, this was before consumption lounges existed, and we tried to get something off strip that we could have consumption at, but the way that the cost would have been more expensive. So we ended up choosing the Paris nightclub, which like we could only have, due to the budget, 300 people in, because we were uncompromising on having open bar. And we actually, I think we even had to compromise there and like have 2 or 3 drink tickets. I don't remember, but like we only had so much we could spend. We spent $25,000 on that event. And that included making sure our guests could have some drinks. We had some hors d'oeuvres, and it was limited to 300 people. Like 600 people showed up for that event. We had to turn away because we were so restricted in our budget. But I think for that event, we ended up making something like $40,000, $50,000 in total revenue for the sponsorships we sold for it, right? So it was kind of a big fuck off event. It was an award show. Like you would expect more sponsorship dollars to carry the weight there. But I imagine that the Grasslands party is probably fully supported by sponsorships at this point, just due to its gravitas, right? Like we all want to be in that room. We all were. I thankfully continue to be invited because Ricardo likes having me around, even though we sort of are competitors in some weird ways. But like, I'm happy to be there because that room is genuinely valuable to be in, right? Like there's some real good shit going on in the Grasslands party. The people who show up are really good. I'm sure that he, at the very least, breaks even on that party via sponsorships. I would hope so, right?
They sent the email today, like the thank you email that lists all the sponsors, and like, there are a lot of sponsors. Yeah, as there should be. I would expect them to be making 2 or 3x on that party based on sponsorship alone. And that's just like, that's been me knowing nothing behind the curtain, right? Like that's just a guess based on how
when you structure an event like this the right way over time and you build that gravitas, that's what you can do with it. I don't know that is the case with all the events. And in fact, I think the most salient point that Matt's quote is now up here is just the amount of people who are spending money without recouping that cost, right? Like, it's easy for me, in my head, I think it's easy for Grasslands to justify doing the Grasslands party. Like, that's a no-brainer. I think they're going to make their money back, and also they're going to pull clients out of that room. But there are so many other people just blowing cash in ways that I think are about vanity or ego or like hope or whatever it might be, that don't have the cash to blow and are blowing it in these very expensive ways in these very expensive places that they don't need to be in, right? Like, Shelby, to your point, like, we could just like show up in a fucking grass field with some, I guarantee you that if you threw a party just like somewhere random in a parking lot, you could get 100 solid people there.
Easily.
Okay, next year, Tuesday at 4:20, like, so welcome party at the In-N-Out Burger gift shop. That's what I'm doing. It's a beautiful parking lot. I think if once the sun sets, a nice string light would be lovely. But other than that, like, I don't give a fuck about.
You could so low tech it, right? And I'm not saying that everybody should. Like, obviously, like, what would it like? What I think is interesting about this conversation is like, what would Vegas MJ Biz Week look like if everyone spent frugally and made creative decisions instead of expensive decisions?
Like, they could spend strategically. Like, okay, I'm looking at these sponsors for the Grasslands party, and it's like, think about what you're doing. So you're not just sponsoring the Grasslands party to get business out of it. That happens, right? That's an inevitability. Hopefully you're in the room with people that, you know, you want to be in the room with, but you're also engaging your team because you've now purchased tickets to the party that you can't purchase a ticket to. It's an invite-only party, and now you've secured tickets. So you have your team in the most lucrative room in the city. You have a way to thank your team for being your team, and you don't have to throw the whole party. You just have to come to the party. So there's incentive for these sponsors to come in. And I think that, like, if you are a team that's looking to spend minimally with like really high results, sponsor a party that you want to go to, and then go to the party and have a good time.
And just do that. Yeah, make that work for you.
I agree with that.
When you're having a good time, you're attracting the energy that you want to be attracting. So if you're in a space like, you know, the reason that our party worked is because me, Mitch, and Jordan had a great time planning it. We had a good time getting it together. The standards were extraordinarily low. We were like, let's just not run out of bagels. That was our standard. We were like, let's just make sure we have enough bagels. But we laughed through the whole process of planning it. And so we knew that we would laugh through the whole process, and we knew that that joy would be infectious to anybody that was in the room with us. And so, like, when you find the people that you want to align with, just align with them and make small investments and make sure that your team is part of that kind of thank you process. If you have people in the city with you, you better be bringing them along with you to those parties that you're doing. And don't make them work. That's the other thing. When you sponsor the party, you don't have to work the party.
That's right. That's right. Yes. And sponsor Jews and Weed next year, y'all, because Jordan's right. It was basically in a parking lot. That's diminutive, but it's
and
still.
When I got there, I thought that the parking lot was it, and I was fine.
Yeah, same. I'm not gonna lie. I never even made it into the dispensary. I didn't have a whole lot of time I could spend there, but I not only didn't make it to the dispensary, I didn't see the gift bags. I was just like immediately in the conversation. I got to see Megan Przynski there for the first time. I probably just fucked her last name up. I'm sorry, Megan. But like, I got to see her there for the first time. Like, had like some really cool experience. But I barely left the parking lot. I was just like in that spot, and then I was like, shit, I gotta go.
Well, Token Jew is there, and he's just the best. So
I would love to meet him.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mark said likely that PR companies trade their services to promote the show in exchange for the awards.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
This is reality. Like, I don't know. I worked for AB before this, AB InBev, and you know, one day I looked at like my lead and who in the comms team, and I was like, PR is bullshit. Like, this is all a lot of bullshit. This is all a lot of back scratching, because this is business and this is how the way things work. And it's like, I'll do something for you if you do something for me. And that scales up and that scales down. So of course there are things that are going to be like not on the up and up, because people do each other favors and people need people, right? That's how we get by, and it sucks, but it's reality.
These comments are so good that I'm like not even like knowing how to like. But anyway, the comments are super.
Jordan
good.
is correct. There were 420 bagels.
Oh my god, I'm obsessed.
Love that choice.
So good. I don't necessarily want to talk about what Mark has on the screen, what I have on the screen right this second. I did want to just speak to. Okay, so Shelby, just so you know, 2018, I rented the sickest Airbnb. It had this like pool and a hot tub, and like outside there was like a place to play that big chess, and there was like a sauna in the back. And I had 3 events at that Airbnb, and like I had who were then the coolest influencers, and we hosted a big dinner at there were 20 people at a long table. The vibes were immaculate. Okay. Year 2, 2019, I rented an Airbnb and I hired a chef and I had influencers stay there, and I had 3 events and it was great. But then it was 2020 and 2020 happened, and I was like, I can't afford this anymore after that, kind of. Like, I was like, then in 2021, I invested in the Fairchild event of that year, and it did not pay back for me at all. Nothing, 0 things. No offense to event throwers. Just, I did a smaller activation and it really didn't give me anything that really gave me access to real conversations. So, anyway, it's like, those are the right ideas. And we could smoke at the house, and we all smoked weed there, and it was great. And I was like, why would you, literally when I first came into it, I was like, why would you ever do anything on the strip? And then I was like, right, fine, I'll do the strip. And now, so I feel like if I'm never doing it again, but if I ever were to, and I would recommend that you do this, Shelby, because you're better at this than me and younger and all the things, more creative. So you should rent a sick Airbnb, and you should have multiple events sponsored by multiple sponsors during the time, hosting like a really cool bunch of different things. Like, for example, you could have hosted that Battle of the Brands thing at the house. If you get a big enough like house. I mean, I got a big ass house, like a 6-bedroom, big ass house with like a pool table and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't that expensive, but I wasn't at the point in my evolution of the cannabis industry, and nobody was like, the sponsorships were still extremely challenging to get, especially for me. Because people were like, well, I don't want to do anything off the strip or whatever. But now it would be a totally different story, all these years later. So
I went to something like that in 2017. The Magic Butter rented a Airbnb, and they had a big pool out back, and it was just like a cool place to go hang for a little while. I don't know how they.
It's giving Coachella. It's giving Coachella.
Well, I came into it. Remember, I come from that world. So I'm like, oh, I'll just get a house and people will come over, just like Coachella or like any of those places where that's like, I'll have an influencer house, and people had no idea. Like, this is what we were talking about at the top about the industry just being so not evolved when it comes to like doing the same things that the mainstream is doing. Like, the whole concept of like the Coachella concept, because like, why would we ever want to do anything? Influencers aren't even important to us. And now they don't want to come because they know they can't get paid.
Yeah.
I'm sticking with In-N-Out Burger because I like going to In-N-Out Burger, and like, if I'm going to be in a city where they have it, like, that's where I want to have a party.
Yeah.
And I do think it's even though I live in Denver now, I have In-N-Out Burger here. When I lived in New York, when I would go to Las Vegas, I would always go to In-N-Out Burger for my first stop. And I did go do it this time, just to like set the vibe. And so I do think it's ideal for a welcome party.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's super good idea.
My personal welcome party. And then I was like, why is no one throwing a party here? The food is the cheapest food in the city.
Legit.
Like, it just makes the most sense. I don't need alcohol. And like, there's a cute little overhang. And like, that's where we went to sesh after the bagel party. The 4 of us, Dave and Jordan from Marino and Mitch from Forestine Kulik, we all went there and we seshed. And I thought we were like Jerry and Elaine and Kramer and George. Jordan's giving me like pushback that he doesn't see it. I'm like, okay. It was the vibe. But we had a really nice time, and I'm like sitting at
I
this
totally
table.
see it.
I see it. Yeah. Anyway, it's a great vibe, and like it's unexpected, which I like because weed needs whimsy. We need whimsy. We need a little fun. It can't just be like, oh, you have nice packaging and there's good colors. Like that's nice, but like, how are we following this up with like the lifestyle part of things? So, you know, I want to be in places that feel familiar to people, and they're like, why does this feel so normal? Because weed is normal. Weed is normal.
Yeah.
So it's normal to us. And now we need to show new people you can go to a place that is a familiar place and do a regular thing that you normally do. And you can also have fun, and you can have a party without spending $100,000.
Yeah. That's really the deal. At this stage, right? It's like, I remember back in 2017, Bob Hoban rented a big fuck off suite in, like, I don't know, maybe the MGM Grand. It had a basketball court in it. Like, it had a conference table. It was a giant house inside a hotel with a basketball court in it. Like, I was just like, what the fuck where am I right now? And a turkey bag full of weed on the coffee table, because, you know, you spend that kind of money, nobody's policing your room.
That was 2017, early
Yeah.
days.
Yeah. Back when they were real harsh about you having weed in these hotels. So, like, you know, that kind of, if somebody did that this year, it would feel real out of place. Like, it would feel like, the fuck are you doing? Right? Like, you don't have that kind of cash to blow. And why are you doing that? I miss you too, Katie. Sup. But yeah, like, you know, the level of expense doesn't match the times at this point. And with so many different people owing people money in this industry, like, one of the biggest slaps in the face is not someone telling you they can't work with you because they have no money and then they go off and spend it. It's when they owe you $20,000 and they're spending 50 on a fuck off suite with the basketball court in it. Not saying Bob doesn't pay his people. I'm just saying, like, you know, if they were to do that right now, they should get excoriated and ripped to shreds. And thankfully, I didn't see anybody flexing that kind of stupidity this year, but I avoided that. So
everything felt, there was no circus. I didn't see any circuses. And like,
Yeah.
those do make me sad because there's so much that you could be putting your money towards. And it's not like having like an aerialist performing isn't good, but like,
Right.
also you could be, you know, making a donation to a community organization or having a community partner, because that's what is really impactful. And like, Stella, thank you for mentioning the Hanukkah party, because I am plugging my Hanukkah party right now. It's on Monday.
Yeah.
And it's in Union Square, and it's going to be pretty fire. It sounds like we'll have an impromptu little rap sesh with Kosha Dills. And
what?
And there's going to be latkes. And one of our sponsors is this game Bong Pong. Have we heard of this?
No.
I mean, this is probably my favorite game ever. Tell me about it.
So it seems like someone has taken bongs, maybe 10 of them, set them up in the format of beer pong, and then like put maybe a short little solo cup on the top for the ball to land in. And then when the ball lands, you take a bong rip.
Oh, but
I'm so here for that.
I thought you were going to say that you had to land the ping pong ball like right at the top.
That was going to be real hard.
If you did that, then
no, we want to make it easy. Come on.
Yeah, you want people hitting the ball.
Right. All right. Well, we should
that's amazing.
Wrap it up because we've been on for 90 minutes, and this has been amazing. Thank you guys. If it's okay with you, I'm going to take this and turn it into probably a blog post, etc. But this has been a great conversation, and it felt honestly like it was meant to be, Shelby, for you to be here so that Brad and I didn't devolve. Mostly me, because Brad's in a better place than me right now, which is weird.
Yeah.
But, I feel like,
Thank you for letting me be here with my unjaded.
So, and I just also like, but the one thing that also really makes me think, right, is who is not there. And it's like the MSOs are not there. And that means that none of this means anything to them anymore. Because they're not.
Are you sure? Like, are they not in the sessions and like on the speaking panels and shit?
But I do not know about any of that from one of my clients. And they're big, and I don't know. I just feel like
Yeah.
that's not where the money is coming from for MJ
Well,
Big
sure.
right now.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think Matteo, like
Mm.
Rosie was on a panel or something like that, but I don't see like the clients necessarily being on the panels. I could be wrong. I could totally be wrong. This is not like, but I do think that they're not attending. And the other thing is, the other part that I wanted to bring up today that we did not touch on, but I just want to say it is, I feel like a lot of people are ignoring the hemp elephant in the room and like acting as if that doesn't exist. And like that the cannabis industry is either also hemp or just separate and it's going to be fine. But
I think it felt very just like all one category, you know, like what it actually should be. Like that is the desire. I thought was like, if it gets you high, it's under one rule. It felt very like combined. Anyone I spoke to that was in the hemp industry, they weren't like, I'm in hemp. It was like, oh, we're having the same conversation. And maybe that's just because I'm so focused on lifestyle that, you know, what really matters to me is that people are learning how to get elevated in the way that works for them. So
Yeah.
it is kind of the same conversation for.
Interestingly, I think I only found myself in rooms where it was a blend as well, right? Like the Vegas Classic had a number of different hemp beverage people there, and also people from the cannabis industry just intermingling, smoking weed together, right? Like it was like, we'll consume your hemp beverage while also smoking a joint kind of situation. The Puff Creative events were partnered with Fat Nugs Magazine as well. By the way, big shout out to Fat Nugs Magazine. Dustin at Fat Nugs, like, really embraced me in their little like family, which was super cool, and I got to kick it with them at this golf course. But everywhere that they went, there were hemp beverages available, and they were involved in all the Puff Creative events as well. So like, it felt like in those spaces that I was in, it was very integrated. And then there was also the Vertosa Lounge. Ben and Anna Ray threw a rager in a suite that was way too overstuffed. And gave me incredible social anxiety. But the point is that there was like prolific amounts of hemp drinks all over the place. And the people who filled that room were all cannabis industry insiders, a lot of which were, I mean, like, hell, I saw D from Humboldt Family Farms there, right? Like, you know, they just like came, there were people that were in spaces that were technically set up to just talk about hemp, but they were cannabis, you know, industry insiders there, and vice versa. So I don't know what the tenor of the conversation is at MJ Biz proper across the board as it relates to like the hemp and the cannabis industries. I know, like, depending on the room and depending on the people in that room, there's probably combative licensed cannabis folks and then like sort of separatist hemp folks, but I didn't really see either side of that. I kind of saw whatever that blend is in the middle, where it's sort of like, you know, fuck it, we'll do whatever works, and maybe that is the better way to go. So we'll kind of go play in that, you know, sandbox a little bit while keeping our leg in this other sandbox, right? Like, that's really where I felt the sort of two sides of that industry were intermingling a lot, but I wasn't really paying attention to the spaces outside of that, so I don't know really what it was like out there.
Were there any hemp brands that were, I don't know, because the three of us weren't there, but maybe this is a good question for Kristen or somebody else who went to the conference floor. Were there hemp brands at the expo?
Yeah, I wonder.
Because I would feel like if it's really one industry, then I think maybe it is true that they were, because I feel like Hippie Water was there, and I know those guys.
Yep.
Was Breeze? Did Breeze invest? And if Breeze didn't invest, why not?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, they're the biggest player in the space right now, right?
I mean, I feel like hemp market is kind of looking beyond. Like, I see more crossover between the hemp market and the BevAlc.
Yeah, you'll see them at the alcohol conventions for sure. I would imagine.
So I'm saying we're not playing in the same space.
No,
yeah, I see what you mean.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. No, always.
That's what I mean. I meant that nobody, everybody's like, oh, because they're here, that means they're us. It's like, no. They're not.
They were like craft hemp brands that I saw everywhere, not big hemp brands.
Look, my dream is about the consumer being properly educated and having answers to questions that aren't, what's the difference between hemp and cannabis? Well, it's a loophole in the, like, I don't fucking care. They want to know effect-wise what the difference.
That's right. Yeah.
Say, except that you can get one shipped to your house and you can't get the other one shipped to your house. That's my problem with it. And like, that's a conversation that I would love for more people to be in the room talking about. But I don't know. It didn't seem like frankly, everyone was there to party. That's what it looked like to me. Everyone was doing business. Everybody, so from a packaging perspective, I'm sure that there were a lot of hemp brands that were, having outreach with that. A lot of like the SEO, like, the non cultivation and the non production, like it was happening. It was happening. They were there for sure. I think maybe they're just trying to
it sounds like
swoop in,
It sounds like Breeze was actively supporting and or involved in places, right? Like I think supporting the 40 tons activation is a cool idea. That's how a big brand like that can really do some good with their money while not necessarily making it all about them. Like, I don't know if
can this year.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting missing player.
Can.
They're like not in the New York market at all. It's weird.
Really?
They're here, but they're like not.
Oh yeah, like not in like the licensed market. Like you can go buy them in
they're in both.
The head shops, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they're in both. Like they're physically here. You can purchase them, but like just from like a marketing and like
I see. Yeah.
Perspective, like, or I don't know, perhaps getting support when you're in the dispensary and trying to get a brand to support you when you thought that they totally would because you're a super fan.
Also because they're New Yorkers and they like are big into the whole like Fire Island scene, and you would really think that they would want to have like a hookup with you guys. So
yeah, I was pretty aggressive about it, but like I'm not anymore.
We've had Lauren and I have had a complaint about Can in the past, which is their lack of support for the cannabis industry that they operate within. Like the creators that they hire to create their marketing collateral, for instance, are they're just spending big money on big money players that already exist in like Hollywood circles and media, but not in cannabis media or with cannabis content creators and professionals. And, it's always felt this way with their brand.
But from like a showbiz perspective, they're reaching up and they would be pulling us up, right?
Yeah,
and so
I'm okay with that perspective because I respect what Lauren does so much because I think it's so hard to find creators in the mainstream space that are willing to put themselves out there as cannabis users. So if you can find mainstream people that are willing to, put their creative juices on the line and you are looking to make a play like Can has made, like kind of what you have to do, right? It's just a larger circle. So it does make sense. I don't know why I'm defending them. They didn't even give me any like swag.
I just give you a leg up to shit on Mel Shelby, and you're just like, no, I like them.
They were like OG love, okay. You can never forget your first love.
No, I know. I remember the first time I actually really enjoyed cannabis beverages was with Can. So, no hate.
This is how I feel about 1906. I have that whole feeling like I love their products, but I had not the best experiences. So
yeah.
We should do not the best experiences episode. This is a show now. Just like
so Brad and I, now that this is the third week that the third time Brad and I have done so like it might turn into a thing. The people seem to like it.
Yeah.
Vote here if you want to.
Vote for me on The Voice, y'all.
Yeah,
vote here. It doesn't mean anything because we're going to decide if we want to or not.
That's right. Yeah, we are the judges on our own panel here.
So there's definitely not going to be a schedule. It's just going to be when we feel like it.
Yeah.
That's better. I went to like straight from the airport, went to like a mom party when I got back, like my friend's 50th birthday party at a bar in Smithtown. And I was like feeling very like, how can I be with like these normies right now? Like, and a girl came up to me and she said, I just want to let you know I follow you on Instagram. And I was like, oh my God, you want to go sesh outside? And we did. And a guy was kind of like giving us some hate. And this girl like fucking schooled him. It was the best. She was talking about minor cannabinoids. She just like nailed it. And I was like, we should have a podcast where we take unassuming men who like want to have judgments about cannabis and then just like shame them. And that's the whole podcast.
I love this. Just recreate that moment live on podcast. Yeah, I'm here for that.
That's like, I don't think it's a good thing. You're so crazy. And then we just go fucking haywire on THCV.
Nigel said that the MSOs were there. I've missed all these comments, so I'm sorry. I hate to disagree, but it's not reality cannabis. Hate people, hate hemp people. License versus loopholes.
And
I don't know.
I know that that exists, but I don't agree that that's a general. Like, I don't think that's across the board. I don't think that's across the board at all. And I do see that that hate exists, that that divide exists. I see the bitterness that exists. But I don't think it's all consuming, and I don't think it's everybody. I think like there's a subsect of licensed producers that hate what's happening in hemp. There's a big subsect of cannabis licensed producers that are playing in hemp, right? Like from some of the smallest to some of the largest. You know, like Utopia out of Oregon, like super small batch creator, cultivator that just moved into hemp because he saw that there was no way to make money in Oregon cannabis, and at the same time, so did Wana Brands. They created their own hemp marketplace, right? So like, I don't agree that like there is just a singular divide that exists. I think there is like a gradient of divide that exists from fully supportive to completely combative. But I think the completely combative segment is small and shrinking. That's unscientific, but you know, it's just my observation on what I'm seeing in the conversation and the tenor of it. You know, I mean, so many players that are in the license space have already moved or are thinking about moving into hemp that it's hard for me to accept the idea that licensed cannabis rejects hemp. I also see that like hemp antagonism that occurs from like people on the really, really, you know, far end of like Wyatt Perp, homie out of Texas. Like he's like as far right wing, you know, in the hemp space as you can get, and he's super antagonistic and hates the cannabis people. But like again, small subsect. I think that there's like so much more of the crossover right now, and I literally think that the Vegas week was a manifestation of that crossover more than it was a manifestation of the divide.
Good, great. I love to hear that, and I'm glad because I didn't see that because none of the parties I went to had any hemp, so I just didn't have that. But lines are blurring. I think this is Mark still. So lines are blurring. I think many have gotten past the Civil War and have accepted that they can diversify and probably should. 1,000%. Like,
I guess I do have one like kind of substantial call out on it. And like, again, baby market over here, but I'm a little worried that as hemp comes up that we're not keeping in mind about like our state operators that have put a lot on the line to be in this state market. And now, you know, and again, I'm in consumption, right? Like that's definitely my wheelhouse. As we start to allow like consumption licensing, and that means that people can bring hemp beverages into the space, we're now supporting kind of like nationwide instead of like supporting our backyard, which is technically the way, like, you know, you've all had the opportunity to grow your market statewide. So I don't want to screw over the people that have put so much on the line in the New York market over the past many years. And like now we're fine. We have the ball rolling. We're at 300 stores. We're a real market. And all of a sudden people are like, well, I'm just going to go buy my weed from the internet. So you know, I'm a little fearful of that. But I'm staying hopeful also because I think that the market is big enough for everybody.
I think the sunk cost fallacy is a really good call out, right? Because I agree with you, Shelby, that like it is unfair, especially for anybody who has had to like hella invest. Like what Mark said, like if you've gone through the process of doing this, which I have not personally, I've not had to put forth the incredible amount of cost and effort to obtain a license. I have full empathy with that process. I have no qualms whatsoever with embracing that. Or making space for that anger about like a hemp company being able to sidestep that entire process when you've already put so much time and effort into it. But I also think that the licensed market is busted. I do not see hope in it. I do not see a future in it. I think even when you get New York up and running and it's like finally things are working, the problem is what you'll find in places like Oregon or Colorado and California is that they never got to a point where like things lifted off. It like hit like a stagnation point, and then just what was left was this like crushing pressure of what is arbitrary, and that arbitrariness is the regulations of the licensed cannabis market. Totally. It's so onerous that what we've created is like fake market dynamics that don't actually exist in any other industry in any other way, that force an export product to be consumed only within its borders. This is why California and Oregon are so fucked, because they can't export, but they were previously export states. There's less than 1 million people in Oregon, but they grow the best weed in the nation and they grow it prolifically. So like it being contained within its borders decimated that market and decimated some of the best cultivators that have ever existed. So like, we can't continue that way. I think something has got to give, and I don't know if it's going to be in the form of federal legalization or in the form of interstate commerce, neither of which are anywhere close to near sight. But what I do think is that if you were to wipe all of those considerations away and like try to imagine a federal market, the market you would imagine would be pretty fucking close to the hemp market. Right? Because with the exception of safety testing and making sure that chemicals are not making it into the final product, and there's a couple ways to do that pretty well without being insane like the fucking licensed cannabis market is, which we have found does not still preserve safety as we've seen in California, right? Like when you just add that one element to the current existing hemp market, you've got a perfect market. You've got a market that can support all of these amazing farmers and producers and manufacturers and retailers across the nation as it should, as almost every other market operates. And so like the tension I see in the hemp to cannabis thing, like the sunk cost fallacy, the, you know, having to go through the pains and the stripes and like, you know, the blood, sweat and tears of operating in a cannabis market for maybe 6 years, 10 years, whatever someone might have been doing. But then like, federal legalization happens in a way that might be different than you expected, that doesn't actually preserve your state monopoly or state cartel run scenario, and instead allows for federal access, like it's going to disrupt the whole fucking market anyway. And all of that time spent is going to have to be recalibrated and might not actually gain someone market share because it's been so confined. And so like that moment's going to happen whether it comes through licensed cannabis and federal legalization that way, or interstate commerce or hemp, but the hemp market already is here. So like, I kind of feel like I feel empathy for the licensed producers, and I feel really, really empathetic for the social equity ones that have been able to hold on to property and make it to this point, because the structure that they've been given to make it to it is going to crush them and everyone else in it. And the social equity play that seems to be right now the most salient is in the hemp space, and some of the best minds in social equity are saying that. So like, I feel like at some point something's got to give, and cannabis producers are going to find themselves holding the bag when they've been invested heavily in state-run operations, and that's just how it's going to be.
Yeah,
I don't know how to avoid that.
I feel like we're on that trajectory. I feel like the moral of the story is stay nimble.
Yeah, right.
The whole story.
It's pivoty.
It's pivoty up in here.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, it's like diversify, right? Like, look at what these other brands are doing. Put a leg in the other market. It doesn't cost you that much, right? It's one of the cheapest ways to brand build, and that's a pro and a con, right? Like, that's also where the safety problem comes into play. But there are so many people brand building using EU GMP certification manufacturing processes that, like, holy shit, that's way above and beyond anything in the licensed cannabis space. So if they're able to do that and be successful with such little investment and no requirement to go through this weird application process and hold, real estate for 2 years and it passed these weird inspections and all the bullshit that goes along with it. If you can start an e-commerce business today, packaging shit up in your garage like every other startup can, like, do it. Fucking do it. What have you got to lose, right? Like, do both if you need to.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What do I know? I'm a fucking marketing guy who doesn't have my money on either side. So, right, take everything I say with a grain of salt. I recognize that I'm talking out my ass.
I probably agree that as long as we figure out what to say to the consumer to keep them safe and to help them make smart decisions for their bodies, that's really the bottom line. That's the goal. And like, I don't fucking care where the flower comes from. Just make sure that people know what they're doing and aren't like, going into this blind. That's where we have the best opportunity to be better as a whole. That's where we are.
Yeah, Mark, I think that's another entire can of worms that we're not going to open right now, but definitely agree that's a conversation that needs to be had because there's so much fake hemp out there, which is so weird. Like that.
It is really weird.
Calling it hemp. That part, and then that's the concentrates, and that's everything, and that's like literally. So then, that part's really uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking to a company about that based in Texas tomorrow, and not because like I chase that kind of opportunity, more because I'm like interested to know. Here's the one thing that I would tell you that bothers the living shit out of me about the hemp market. I have asked everyone that is credible that operates in it do you know a good source for clean, quality, well-produced THCA flower? Can you give me one? Right? Now, if I ask that question about the licensed cultivation market, I will get a fucking spreadsheet full of people who grow outdoors, live organic, no-till processing, right? Like they can tell me infinite amounts of information about how a cultivation is operating. I cannot get one single data point on THCA flower from anyone who operates in that market. Nobody knows where you get trusted quality flower on the THCA side. Everyone that is selling it, I think, is just not asking questions and doesn't think people care about it, and are selling it at black market prices, by the way. I mean, we're talking about like, you know, some of these ounces going up to, you know, $300, $400 an ounce, right? Which is wild. But you know, the labs can be faked. Like they're not using positioning statements in their marketing collateral, right? Like that if you were invested in some of these methodologies, you would absolutely make positioning statements about, like live soil is incredibly difficult to do live soil farming, and it's very expensive. And like, you know, especially from a time perspective, like if you take that level of care, you're going to put it everywhere, right? If you are organic, all these things, right? So I don't see any THCA flower that anybody that I trust knows that it is absolutely definitely good quality. And of course, I know the reason why, but like, you know, that's the big problem that exists right there, right? Like, I think the whole argument makes sense, but when you actually look at the reality, there's just shit flying off the shelves that has really like no standards and checks and balances in place unless they're following GMP manufacturing standards, and that's basically beverage, right? So like, I trust hemp beverages a lot more than I trust anything else in the hemp space. I would not and have not bought THCA flower. I was given a THCA flower pre-roll at the Juice and Weed party, however, rolled in rose petals. And so I got home with it. Was that
good flower? It was great.
But like I remember I got home and like I was looking at the packaging and trying to get information. I was like, okay, well, tell me about your THCA flower, right? I found that the rose petals were certified and lab tested and, you know, really high quality. They did not have any of those statements about the flower itself. So like, again, I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm smoking here. I don't know what's in this. And they're not telling me what's in it because they won't, because they can't.
Remember the olden days when you didn't know what you were smoking?
I know, I do.
We're all here. We're all here.
Yeah. I just like, you know, really loved getting out of that space.
You know? When I came to cannabis, I would never have come to cannabis if it still was that. Like, how high you're going to get, what is it? I wanted to know. I mean, now I don't care as much, but like, I was really worried about how I would feel and how it would make me feel and how much is too much and all that kind of stuff. I would never in a million years have been like, without dosages and understanding to really come here. And I feel like I'm a good example of like what Shelby you dream about, right? Is like the people normalizing and people who never really used it before coming to it, right? It's like what we all want, and like getting off alcohol and pills and stuff like that. But like, I don't know, but like I then of course now I realize that like, I know that hemp isn't always safe. Obviously, cannabis isn't always safe either, but my sister doesn't know that.
Right.
And, you know, and like, they're like, oh, well, we could go buy these like joints on the internet. And it's like, please don't do that. You know, like, please, you know, like.
They're like, but I got it from a dispensary. You're like, just because it says dispensary on the website, it's just a word.
That's right.
Or on the outside of the store in New York City.
Yeah, exactly.
Whole neighborhood. I'm like, you guys, I work at a dispensary. You can come into the dispensary and see me. They're like, no, I went to ours. It's like, we don't have one. We do not have a dispensary. You did not go to one.
Hilarious.
We're
wrapping up.
We got to.
We can talk all day because I love you guys so much. This has been so good.
Yeah, thanks for making this the highlight of my day.
Did you see what happened? I made hearts happen.
That just did that?
Yeah.
It didn't do.
I am so sad that I'm just now learning that and that we haven't.
When you do like that? What happens when you go like that? Try other things.
Yay! Oh, Brad! It only works for Brad, apparently.
I got that magic.
You have to be crazy and weird and nothing happens. But I think
that's the best end.
Does that do anything? No? All right, well.
Okay.
All right. We got it.
Y'all, this was
Hey,
great.
thanks for having me.
Yes.
I am so glad that you were here, Shelby.
Yeah, it was fun. Let's do this again sometime.
Yes.
I can't believe how long so many of these folks stayed with us.
I know.
Like,
We
this
Yeah.
is a
hours.
We must be so
long form.
I'm gonna turn this
Oh,
into
look, someone
some
came
short
back.
form.
Katie understands what's up, right? Yeah,
Brad doesn't have LinkedIn, but at least he can do cool things on camera.
that's my content strategy right now. Post LinkedIn ban is just like, let me just be on other people's shit.
You think you could do Spider-Man? Let's see what happens when you try to do Spider-Man. I thought that would.
Isn't it like a, yeah, man, that would be cool.
All right,
That
why
would
don't
be
you play us
fun.
off with some fireworks?
Oh, right. How did I do that? Now I just look like a fucking goofy asshole. Come on, fireworks. I got a bubble.
You got a thumbs up, Bubble.
What's the little bubble?
Oh.
Well, there we go.
Yay!
Silly.
I love you
I would
guys.
say.
Love you.
Doesn't exist for me. Bye.
Bye, all of you people in LinkedIn land.
Bring back Brad. Bye. Okay. That was